here's Brody Brazil.
It's been a busy time for Chicago stadiums and sports arenas in the recent months and years, and now something that kind of came out of the blue. We're here to talk about the United Center. This is an aerial shot, a satellite view of it. The building has existed since, the mid-90s. It plays host to the NBA's Chicago Bulls and the NHL's Chicago Blackhawks, in addition to a bunch of other indoor entertainment and sporting events during the calendar year. And maybe it needs a little bit of a facelift. It kind of feels like a Chicago-style building, and maybe it is a little bit dated, but it's one of the main arena venues across North America, and it's a traditional one from the 90s or even the 80s or the 70s, a big building surrounded by a bunch of asphalt and a huge parking lot. That's what they always used to do. So this is how United Center looks right here and right now. But if the owners and operators of this building have it their way, this is what United Center is about to look like in about a decade. No more parking lots, fully developed. I shouldn't say no more parking lots, parking garages, but an entire district of mixed-use development surrounding this building. It doesn't look like they plan to really give it a facelift or an upgrade. Maybe they will, but for right now, these renderings are showing the existing United Center now surrounded by a brand new development. So let me give you the details. They're calling this the 1901 project. It's 55 total acres. They say it'll cost $7 billion for this mixed-use district. And let me state right now, and that's why I put it in yellow and in bold right there, this is all a private investment. So it can and will happen. It doesn't need a vote. It doesn't need public money. Everything else in Chicago, we'll get to that in a second, the White Sox potential and hopeful stadium, what the Bears are hoping to do right around Soldier Field, all of that requires hundreds of millions, if not billions, of public money. The owners of the United Center are saying, you know what, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this with our own money, so this doesn't require much else to happen. They're saying this will take place in 7 different phases, so a lot of step 1, step 2. They kind of have to do that, right? Because if you want to continue operating the arena, you can't block it off, you can't isolate it, you can't take away all the parking at once. You have to do this very strategically so that you don't suffocate the actual, United Center over the next decade. They'll do it slowly. They'll do it in 7 different phases, and this could start as soon as 2025, the next calendar year. They say it'll be a 10-year total development. So again, slow and steady, and you'll start to see these pieces rise out of the existing 55-acre parking lot. And again, just to recap the state of Chicago sports, the Cubs for a long time had been talking about doing something at Wrigley Field. It took them a long time. They sunk down below the stands and built new clubhouses and fully developed the outside of it. It still looks and feels like Wrigley Field, but it is way more modernized for fans and players. So the Cubs are pretty much set. They've been playing at Wrigley Field more than 100 years, but now they've finally got it redone where it's satisfactory again for now. The White Sox, after being on the south side for a handful of decades, they're trying to build at this new site called the 78, what would be Chicago's 78th neighborhood that's on the South Loop. It is a beautiful plot of land. The problem is they want close to $1 billion of public subsidies to help make that happen. If they could move there, regardless of the money, who wouldn't love the idea? But it's just how they're trying to get it done makes it very difficult. All of that is happening at the same time as the Chicago Bears were searching out in the suburbs. Now they're saying, you know what, we actually want to build at the Soldier Field site, so we're going to try and do something right next to that. So that is kind of up in the air right now. And then the Bulls and Hawks, they're just changing the situation here at United Center. They're going to stay. If you're doubling down on United Center as your venue, I love that part of this. I love taking a building that's in a fine spot and the building has good bones, and maybe you'll just upgrade the UC a little bit. Stay there at United Center and surround it and do it all with private investment. That's actually kind of great that we're not talking about asking for public money, a public vote. So it's kind of refreshing that this all is going to happen, and it doesn't necessarily need any input. It doesn't cause controversy. There's no real back and forth. There are some renderings, honestly, not as many as I would have expected. Kind of interesting to have an ice rink in the middle of winter outside a building that has an ice rink inside. But no, you see what I'm getting at here. It's the holiday season. I'm sure there's shopping and restaurants. And I know some people that live around the United Center within a couple miles. They say this would actually be a pretty cool thing. There's a couple really good neighborhoods already that are growing and flourishing. And they think that doing this at United Center would only add to what's already going on. I have no clue what that building is. It certainly doesn't look like the parking garage, but by the way, they've made clear in taking away all this parking and displacing it that they're going to have to put parking back in the sense of parking structures. Now, how does that work with the ingress and egress? And again, by the way, you just cannot suffocate United Center. You can't do all this surrounding of the building and do it wrong, because if you do, you will mess up people's experience going to United Center, and then they won't like the venue anymore. You will literally ruin the heart to create the body surrounding it. So that brings the question here. For Chicago and for anywhere else, I mean, they're doing this backwards because usually the new arena goes up at the same time as the ballpark village or the entertainment district. But should sports venues actually be surrounded by parking lots like they used to be for so many decades, or do they now all need the entertainment district, the ballpark village, the whatever we're calling these surroundings that usually the teams are trying to buy the land, they want to own all this real estate? Do we need one or the other, or some kind of mixture of both? Let me begin with parking lots. Obviously, parking lots are way better from the ingress and egress perspective of the venue. Like parking garages and traffic and blocking people, that's all very difficult to actually make that happen and do it the right way. Parking lots are easy. You come in, you park. It makes the experience convenient to park right there, walk right in. You don't have to cross any streets. Simple as that. If there's 20-something thousand seats at United Center, I don't know, are there 14,000 parking spaces? No, probably not that many. I'd have to look that up. I should have looked it up already. But even if there's 10,000 parking spaces, that's great. It's no problem to find parking now with a bunch of people living around there, working around there, and you're cutting down on the parking spaces. You see what I mean here? Like, this could be an issue. But if you put parking lots surrounding a stadium or arena, you're also insulating the venue from its surrounding neighborhoods. Like, you really can't connect the UC to everything around it if there's 55 acres of asphalt and nothing. You'll never have that cohesion of a sports venue and its neighborhood surrounding it. It's just a bunch of fences. They close it off when there's no event. It's like you can't trespass. So the venues will always be insulated so long as it's parking lots surrounding it. And it's also wasted space. And if you think about like an NFL stadium that is surrounded by parking lots, let's think about an old school, and Kansas City's not a good example because they play baseball at the same complex. But if Kansas City were just Arrowhead Stadium, and they only play, 10 home games with preseason, maybe a couple playoff games, let's call it 11 per year. What happens in the other 340-something days, 50 days a year? Nothing. That parking lot is a huge waste of space. You can do so much more on that acreage. So that brings me to developments. If you do developments, contrary to parking lots, yeah, there is the danger of suffocating the venue with traffic and too many people. Now all of a sudden, it's like, remember when it used to be easy to park at the United Center? It was probably $40, $50, but you park, you walk right in. It was so simple. Now I don't even know if I'll get parking. It's going to take me 45 minutes just to get in the neighborhood. So there is that concern. If you do it wrong, you're jeopardizing the whole thing. It can also, though, on the positive side, create a year-round destination. Again, it's wasted space for most of the year. Even with the Bulls and Hawks taking up most of the winter nights, how about all summer long? I mean, I know there's concerts and other events, and I actually know that the United Center is about to host the DNC out there, but for the most part, it's a pretty slow and empty venue for most of the summer. So this creates a year-round destination if they were to do something like this. It also benefits local government. Certainly it benefits the property owners with property value and the revenue they can create there, but it also creates tax income via more businesses and property tax. All of that gets elevated if you actually develop this land. So there's another beautiful image. I mean, I don't mind this one bit for the sense of keeping an existing building instead of tearing it down and begging for something new. The fact that it's all privately financed, you just have to get this right so you don't screw up this legacy building, right? Don't diminish the experience just because you want to capitalize on the real estate and try and make a lot more money surrounding it. By the way, this is a trend. Like this right here is what they're talking about and thinking about with Dodger Stadium right now. The former owner of the Dodgers still owns a majority of the parking lot. That's what they're trying to do with the Dodger Stadium parking lot, which is a totally different situation. But if something like that happens, expect more of this to happen successfully in other dated ballparks and venues across the country. Hey, you made it here to the end of this video. Excuse me, I appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. That'll greatly help me, this video, and this channel. I'm glad you found me. I don't know if this is the first time you're ever seeing me, but on that note, I would love it if you go down there right now and hit that subscribe button. That way, I definitely get to see you back here next time.